Come on. If you want to talk non-sexy, accounting. Okay, dude, let's be honest. Accounting, not sexy. Okay. Most people don't think of their accountant as the sexy business, right? But you took the story and you extracted from it the essence and the value, or the thing that really makes the company stand out, which is almost the soul or the thing that's driving the company from the inside, right? And bring it out front so people can see what the business really is the people underneath and what they really care about and what they think about. And I remember you doing that. So you're like an explorer. Like you dig for the gold, right? You're looking for that gold. At MBA Chartered Professional Accountants, we have 3 core beliefs. 1, we believe that business owners are the most important people on the planet. 2, we believe that the traditional accounting firm business model is flawed and fails to serve you. And 3, we believe the MBA way gives you what you truly want and deserve, resources and advice that helps you grow your business and your life. This is the MBA Way Podcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the MBA Way Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Solbakken, and this week, I am really looking forward to having an interview conversation with John MacDonald. John is the publisher of the Business Examiner News Group. It's a BC-based news business platform, a business-based news platform and events producer. So John, you actually do events too. You produce events. I've been to a couple of those events with you. Yeah. They're fantastic.
No, it's a big part of our business, and I think we'll get into kind of some of the reasoning for why we have them later in the conversation. But yeah, it's what we find our specialty is basically non-metro markets in the province. So anything outside of Vancouver is what we deal with.
Yeah, so you deal specifically, like that's why we get along so well, because MBA being based in Kelowna, and I'm also based in Victoria. So you guys are Victoria as well, Victoria and Kelowna, and that's why we resonate so well. It's for the business owners in that area. But this conversation we're going to have is going to be great because it's going to apply to business owners across Canada and the U.S. actually, but specifically just what the Business Examiner can do for them. So here's the exciting part. I didn't realize this is that 2024 is the 40th anniversary of the brand. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, no, we're very excited about it, man. It's the ownership of the brand is kind of a storied history. It was started, or Black Press is who my parents bought it from. I want to say like the last 10, 15 years. And so, Black Press is an institution in the province in terms of news. And my dad was involved in working for the very first Business Examiner, I think in like the late 1980s, early 1990s. And so to be able to carry that tradition on has been awesome. And just to redefine kind of what business news looks like. We started off in print back then, and we are not in print as of February 2020. And so I've had a lot of, we've had to find a new way for business news to be distributed.
Yeah.
We're not going to every single door. We're not, reaching, mom and pop or home-based businesses. And so it's been a lot of evolution that's had to take place over the past couple of years, but it has worked out really well. And we are in scale growth mode right now.
So here's it. I'm a lot older than I look. And I'm definitely a lot older than I behave. As we've been again, talking back to the events that we've been at. I'm not one to shy away from saying things as they are. But I mean, I remember, so I had accounting practice. I did for 26 years. I did accounting in Victoria. And I always remember coming into and it was always, here it is, the new Business Examiner is out, and the magazines would be sprayed out like they're sitting in the waiting room, right? And so when you go to the accountant, and it was all the big players in town too. So all the big law firms, all the accounting firms, the financial advisors, those were kind of like the 3 cores. Every time you went into the office, there's the Business Examiner. It was always sitting there. And then as you were waiting to meet with your accountant or your lawyer or your financial advisor, you pick up the Business Examiner and you start leafing through it, right?
Yeah.
Especially if I placed an ad with you guys, because then I really wanted to see my own thing, right? But that was something else. Like I'm curious, like, so what got, obviously, you said your dad bought the business, but what got you into it? Why did you want to get into that? Like, I really want to talk about like your backstory. I want to talk about what current trends are going. And I really want to talk to our listeners about what they can start thinking about. Because again, this is the whole purpose of the MBA Way podcast is we want to bring a bunch of resources to them. So I want to be able to give them some nuggets about what's coming in the future, what they should be thinking about. But let's go this. I said this before to someone. I said, let's do a Scooby-Doo ending. I was like, let's go to the past here. Let's figure out, if you're old enough, you understand what I'm talking about. Let's go to the past. I want to know what got you into this. What attracted you to getting into the Business Examiner? Like, what?
Yeah. No, I'll give you kind of that backstory. So I started with the company in 2015. It was founded in 2004 by my parents, and as kind of family businesses go, you do everything,
chief cook and bottle washer.
Oh, for sure.
Everybody. Yeah.
It was to the point. So I'm the oldest of 5 kids. And so my mom learned how to do bookkeeping on the fly, and we would have an assembly line of invoices, printing labels and stamps for all of us kids. And so that was like the very, very beginning. And then I went off and did my own thing. And so I actually started as a contract writer in 2015 just to pay my way through school. I was finishing up my business degree after a 7 glorious gap years. You're going to have to tell me. Okay, hold on. I'm coming back to those 7 glorious gap years. We're going to talk about that, but keep going. I'm just telling you, I'm putting that on a shelf. I'm coming back to that. No, for sure. And so, I started as a contract writer, and we were still in print at that time. And it was, to be super blunt, right? It was just a way to pay the bills. And, I had been writing for them since I was about 14, 15 on and off. So it wasn't too hard to pick back up. And what I found is there was a couple of stories that I wrote for some industrial companies in northern BC. And our specialty is kind of in I would just call the non-flashy or the non-sexy businesses that really keep the economy moving. Things like trucking companies or civil contractors or multifamily builders. Mm-hmm. And what I found was that these people loved to have their story told because nobody else was telling them. And so, and the trick too is, okay, there's, you get an overview of, what does Eric do for a living and what do what are the problems you solve? And that's great. But at a certain point, there's some limits there, right? Custom home builder builds homes. And so you need to kind of dig for the story a little bit harder. And what I really kind of fell in love with was the challenge of uncovering what we would call, like from a writing perspective, the lead of the story, or what is that hook? And I enjoyed kind of asking questions and probing. So an example would be there is a company in northern BC that what they do is they haul wood from point A to point B.
Yep.
Right. So it's a sizable company, but past, the key deliverables to their customers, it's a fairly simple operation. And so in the context or as I'm going through the interview, he starts talking about an employee wellness program where they got, over the course of 6 months, they eliminated, I think 90% of their staff stopped smoking because of a new health program that they started doing. And so that may seem, it may not seem that great, but the effort required to get, 120 staff on a health program, the long-term implications for retaining those employees, their future health or quality of life, that's an example. There's another one where there was a complicated transition story where the current owner was passed over 3 times for ownership, and he was given the company by a family member because there was no one else to do it. And it was kind of like a passive aggressive handoff. And he was able to take that company and double it in size, I think, in 3 years. So those kinds of things are what gave me the insights, or the maybe this iteration in print is not the thing, but there is something here in terms of telling those untold stories.
So I'm all of a sudden I'm starting to connect the dots here, because I remember when you guys did a couple of stories, you've done a few for us for MBA, and we've been in the Business Examiner. And that was one of the things that I really loved, is that you were searching for that differentiating factor. So it's like, as you said, we'll call it the non-sexy business. And come on, if you want to talk non-sexy, accounting. Okay, dude, let's be honest. Accounting, not sexy. Okay. Most people don't think of their accountant as the sexy business, right? but you took the story and you extracted from it the essence and the value, or the thing that really makes the company stand out, which is almost the soul or the thing that's driving the company from the inside, right? And bring it out front so people can see what the business really is the people underneath and what they really care about and what they think about. And I remember you doing that. So you're like an explorer. Like you dig for the gold, right? You're looking for that gold.
Yeah, no, and it's a fun challenge. And I think what makes it, or made it real for me is, and I'm sure you see this in your own conversations when you're developing new business and you go through your 5 static questions and it needs an analysis for a new customer. But when you press them on something, you can see them light up, or their tone of voice change, or they'll lean forward in the conversation. That's what really gets me excited, because you've kind of earned their trust, you've captured their interest. And so, yeah, obviously we're not in print now, but that was what really hooked me on the business.
Dude. So that is where now I'm starting to really understand why we resonate so well with one another, because that's for MBA. That's the whole approaches that we've been taking, is that it's not the tax returns and the financial statements and all the stuff that we do that people care about. I want to find out really what matters to them. So one client can go, I really want to build this business up, sell it to my kids, and go retire on the beach in Maui. Okay. And because it's really important that my kids get the business. So everything we do is surrounding around what they want. And we give the tax and account, like the advice we give the clients, which is ownership structure, tax efficiency, and compensation strategy. It's all based on what they want. So I want to, when the client, all of a sudden their eyes light up in the conversation, I'm like, aha, that's what it is. Like, what is it that you really care about? And then we apply our tools to what they need so they can get what they want. You're going in and doing the same thing. You're talking to the client, you're doing that interview, and you're finding out what that spark is, and you're extracting that, and you're showcasing that and putting that in the spotlight.
Yeah. Well, you've nailed it. And I think that's it. It's like with anything, when my background is in sales, like I've done B2B sales now for 12 years. And I don't know if this is the nicest thing to say, but a lot of times, you talk about the people don't buy on logic, they buy on emotion.
Yes.
Right. And so when you're doing this kind of upfront work, whether it's in business development or networking, or if you're a journalist or whatever you're doing, if you're able to get people to like you, it is almost more valuable than having a great product. And I know it's not a great thing to say, but it's in relational sales. Like, there are lots of accountants, there are lots of different places to place your advertising dollars, and most of them are effective in their own way. And so it's for you to take that upfront time to get to understand who they are, their motivations. And as soon as you can usually feel in the conversation, there's a little click. And you're like, okay, got them. Not in terms of obviously manipulation, but
now you understand them. When you say got them, you mean now you understand them. They understand you. There's a connection there. If anything, really, we could just end the podcast right here. Like, I think everybody, the listeners could get, if you just took that one piece of gold that John gave us, that would change your business in a heartbeat. It's not about the stuff you sell them. It's not about the things you sell them. It's about how they feel about you. It's all about how they feel about you. And they only feel good about you if you actually understand them. So if you show your clients that you understand them, that you're empathetic to their problem, and that you're doing what you can to help them get what they want, that's how you make a client for life, right? And that's it in a nutshell. Like, literally, okay, we can end the podcast. We're done. Boom, click, end of story. But I want to keep going. I'm not sure if I want to dive in yet. I'm going to dive into that your gap years a little bit later in the podcast here, because I think it's going to be fun to hear what you actually did. But let's go. Let's go move from there and say, what are the current trends that you're seeing? Because this is what I want our listeners to be able to look at and think about, is what are the current trends that are happening for BC businesses? Like in terms of, and again, what you do is you help them with their B2B sales cycle, right? That's really what you're doing, is you're helping showcase the business and getting it out in front of their ideal customer or client and showcasing them so that their customer or client can feel an attachment or a relatability to them and say, hey, I want to go talk to them. And then you can make that relationship. And that's how you get your client. But let's talk about the trends that are happening right now. What do you see? Obviously, you mentioned one of them, which is away from paper print to digital. I mean, that's one, but.
Yeah. So I think when I was prepping for this, I was thinking from a trend perspective, more of like just, let's say, provincial economic pressures.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Hey, dude, this is wide open. This podcast is just like I want you to showcase what you got there.
Yeah. So I think even just to briefly touch on the marketing thing before we jump on, I think from a trend perspective, the biggest challenge that a business has is where to place their dollars. And there, with the mass exodus of print that is happening, and we still deal with some clients who only want to be, or some prospects who only want to be in print. But, when you're looking just even in your perspective, you've got, maybe YouTube, but, for sure LinkedIn, some of the other generally B2C social channels like Instagram, and then you have all these different platforms. In BC, there are, there's one sort of provincial business publication. There's Business in Vancouver, who I have a ton of respect for. But it becomes difficult, especially in these smaller markets. Like, where do you place your dollars? And so you have to really get creative for that. So I think that just from a marketing trend, that's something that we get feedback on a lot, because I had a meeting earlier today for an event in Nanaimo next week, and they are asking questions like, who do we need to sit with? Who do we not know that we need to know? And our job evolves from just trying, basically, talking our sponsored content, sponsorships and other things or intel for some of these mid-size and larger organizations to understand, who do we deal with? Because in a Campbell River or a Vernon or a Chilliwack or a Kitimat, who are the people we need to deal with? And so that's just what I would say on the marketing trend side.
So the marketing trend side, what I heard you say, like, you look at all these social media platforms and it's noisy, man. Like, It is so noisy and negative and filled with conflict and confusing. Like, that's, for me, there's I call it the 3 C's. Like, there's conflict, there is confusion, and there's complexity. It's just like, where do you go? Like, kind of deer in the headlights. Where do you put your money? Where do you invest your dollars? That's where, if you can be targeted, I call it the shotgun. It's the sniper approach versus the shotgun approach, right? You get out there and you just start shooting the shotgun. You're just hoping you're going to hit something. Sniper approach is, exactly where your ideal client is and customer, and you're able to go right at them, right? And give them the messaging that you need, right?
Yeah. When I think too, I look at things from the B2B perspective, and what a typical trend is, sales volume is fairly low for a lot of B2B companies, especially in the construction sector, where we deal with, with quite a bit there. And so for them to spend money to reach, 30,000 people doesn't really make too much sense, because they only need 10 clients a year, where they can even only handle that many. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it is, because you feel the pressure to be on social media for sure. Like, I mean, I use it personally a lot, but it's for consumption and connecting with my friends. I wouldn't make zero business buying decisions based on Instagram ads or things like that. So, yeah, a significant challenge and an opportunity, depending.
So when this podcast airs, then all the bots out there can listen and know not to try and put too many clickbait in front of John MacDonald, because he's not going to click. He's not going to click. Don't use it. All right. Don't target John. So there you go.
Well,
or Eric, by the way, because I don't do that either. I don't go for the clickbait. I was in marketing for online marketing for like 3 years, launching a different company and different product, and so I understand that whole world very much. Right.
Yeah. When it's the crazy thing too, I read a stat the other day. You can't, welcome to fact check me on it, but I think it's about roughly half of the internet is robot traffic. Yes. So it is. Anyways, it's pretty wild when you start to think about just, am I talking to a real person or not?
Yeah. 9 times out of 10, you're not.
Yeah.
No, and 9 times out of 10, you got to wonder about who's making all the comments. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yes.
Now we're going down now you want to talk about a rabbit hole? Like that's one thing I got to try and do is keep things going in track. So let's get back to the current trend. So that's one, where to put your marketing money. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one. And the other is more just from like an operations perspective, so in the news everywhere, over the past couple of weeks leading up to yesterday with the carbon tax increase. And I would just preface, this is not a political statement about, who's in government, but the realities of the impact to small and medium-sized companies on a couple percentage point increase. The average person may say, oh, that doesn't mean too much. Well, it's bottom line. It's coming off your bottom line. And, I understand the intent behind the carbon tax, and I'm not even saying I'm opposed to it, but we have a pretty significant affordability issue, or just to live in British Columbia.
Yeah.
And what people are not expecting, or maybe they're not digging too far into it, but the cost of every good is going to increase because the carbon tax is tied to fuel prices. So, people have issues with food pricing. Well, that's going to go up, outside of fuel, even trucking companies bringing gravel to point A to point B. Like there are the cascading effects of these seemingly small changes have very, very negative effects that people just seem to wipe away. I would say politicians in general seem to just kind of sweep it under the rug and hope that you won't notice. But on one hand, we care about affordability. On the other hand, hey, by the way, everything's going to cost more. It's a very, I would say, confusing at best policy approach. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we just see a lot of. There's a lot of stuff in the news, but people are going to have some really nasty increases over the next 6 months.
So, John, you are way more, shall we say, your position on it was way more politically correct, and that probably even just shows you where my era is, because it was all about politically correct. But I have no problem voicing how insane that tax is and how detrimental the Liberal government has been to business owners across the country. They've attacked business owners, and this is nothing but an inflationary play. And I don't understand the should we call it it's helping the environment, but it's not helping the environment, right? The amount of footprint that Canada really has is not there. You want to talk about the real big players on the environment? You're talking about the big economies like China and all the rest of it. They're pumping coal into that's where the real problem is. So I don't understand what they're doing over here, but I do know that what you said, and I will agree to it, it's going to increase inflation. So we got inflationary, we're bringing interest rates up to reduce inflation, but yet now we're going to increase taxes, which is going to increase inflation. So they're going to what are they doing? I don't understand it. Right. And I don't understand most of the things the government does when it comes to their policies, but I know this for sure. They're always done so they can try and get back into power.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of it too, and this is a bit more of a cynical approach, but the federal Liberals have been polling so poorly that that currently the Bloc Québécois is expected to form the official opposition. And so again, this is a fairly pessimistic look, but if they know they're coming out of power, they're trying to make it as difficult as possible for the Conservatives or whoever else forms government. They're really trying to screw over their first year, because that first year is now going to have to be spent understanding the legislation, undoing it, and then they won't actually get to do what they want to do for probably until that second year. Then year 3, you're in a campaign mode again.
Yeah.
So that's my cynical.
Yeah, no, that's not the cynical. That's just a viewpoint. That's just what you're looking at. And again, we could go down an entire rabbit hole here, but I want to get us back focused over to these are the challenges. So we got inflation. So where do you put your marketing money, right? Where do you put your money? Where do you invest your dollars? And we've got inflation coming, another bout of inflation coming until we can unwind this insanity that we just talked about, right? And so, when it comes to the business owner and where they put their money, I want to get into the thinking process, because you've seen this. I mean, you've been around this for a long time. What is it that business owners should be looking at when they're deploying their marketing money, or when they're looking to generate leads and increase sales? Because it's all about return on investment. Like this, I keep saying to all our clients, I said, it has to be an ROI. When you invest $1, you should be getting something back. It's the same thing. You should be looking at your accountant, your lawyer, your advertising spend, your staff, everything you spend is an investment. It should give you a return. If it's not, then that's not a good thing, right? So what should they be thinking about when they're investing their marketing dollars? Given your experience so far, like in trending wise, what are the key things that we could have some takeaways here? Because I really want our listeners to be able to go, wow, John, I want to start thinking about this when I'm placing where I'm putting my money, right?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things that stick out there. And so the number one thing, I don't know how much we're going to dig into this later on, but we're looking at, so our specialty is dealing with companies that, especially, I would just say rely on relationship-based sales. So lower sales volume, and really trying to open the doors for conversations with the right person. Mm-hmm. And so the things that I'm looking at in my own shoes, owning this company is so I talked to you, Eric, today, and how long is it going to take me to convert you? And not just in terms of, a special offer, but into a recurring client. So for us, that's about a maximum of a 6-month window. Sometimes, depending on if you hit someone's fiscal, you're looking at 12 months. So you're basically looking at, okay, so if I understand that my buying window is 6 months, as an example, I've got to figure out how to hit that person. In our case, probably 20 to 40 times over 6 months. And that's in a combination of emails, phone calls, and then advertising, whether we're doing something on LinkedIn, whether it's some kind of promotion with one of our events. And so you kind of, as you're looking to space out those dollars, you think, okay, so I'm already spending, $100,000 on my top sales guy, as an example. So I need to pressure him to make sure that he's getting his, 25% of those touches via email or phone call. And then you're kind of trying to place those dollars at key points in that, I would just call it your buying window or your business development window. And so you think, okay, so I'm going to see them, connect with them virtually. That's probably the easier thing to do, phone, email, Zoom. Mm-hmm. You really need to get them in person, and so for us, it's something that we follow for our own business, like our own personal development and how we recommend our customers do it is you're having some kind of a soft introduction to who you are. So whether that's a phone call, whether it's getting them to read a sponsored content with UTM code tracked for some sort of remarketing or future follow-up. And then you're going to be following up with that person. We love face-to-face or something live. Relying on email alone is not typically going to produce the best kind of customer. The best kind of customer is the one you put a lot of upfront work into. And then we're looking for an excuse to get them up to one of our events. Or in the case of a company like yourself or Bush and Mitchell, who we deal with a lot in Kelowna, they are marketing to our audience who are business owners in the Okanagan, and then they're getting to meet those people face to face, sitting beside them, connecting with them. And so if I'm deploying marketing dollars, I'm looking at who's my target customer, and specifically the job type or the job title. Mm-hmm. Where are they hanging out? So, in whether it's an event or whether it's in an industry association or whether it's a smaller networking group, or even, I'm not sure if you're familiar with McKay CEO forums, one of those peer advisory groups, tech or the executive committee is another one. You're kind of looking at who do I want to be, or who do I want to connect with? Where are they going to be? And then how do I hit them both in person and then with some personalized or digital follow-up?
There's this, I had, I've been working with business coaches and mentors all, for the last 34, oh my gosh, it's going to be 35 years now. It's actually, holy crap. I just realized that May 1st will be 35 years that I've been in the accounting profession. That's a jaw dropper for me right there. Yeah. Holy crap. Anyways, so one of my business coaches, he said there was this 5 phases of business development. He said it's visibility, credibility, profitability, sustainability, and scalability. Those first two, like the visibility and the profit, are visibility and credibility. Those are those first 2 phases. So we're going to call those visibility, credibility is that's the part that you help business owners do, become more visible and credible in front of their target client, right? And so understanding clearly what your sales cycle is, like what's a sales cycle, and saying from my first point of contact with the person to when they finally buy from me or become a repeat buyer from me is a certain period of time. And then how many touch points, how many times do I need to be visible and credible for these people, for them to finally say they want to buy from me, which then creates the profitability, right? So I like that in just the simplified terms is saying, like, for our listeners is going, what is your sales cycle? What is from the day that they first hear about you, how they hear about you, to when they actually buy or become a repeat customer? How many touch points do you need in there? How many times do you need to be visible and credible? And I love that because, when we go to, you understand this clearly, you understand your model clearly. And I was thinking about that because when I was at the events with you, and we've done that, we've sponsored some of the events, and we've been there, and you get to touch base with people. That's a really good way of looking at it, because then eventually they get to know you. And as you said, it's about them liking, and trusting you. And there's the visibility, credibility part, right? So for the listeners, just like how many touch points is, and you've got so much experience with this, with all these different B2B businesses, that if a new client, let's say someone's listening to this podcast right now and they're going, maybe I should give John a call, and I'll be like, yeah, definitely contact John. And we'll have your contact information here on the podcast, and people will be able to reach out to you. I think that's one of the things they should say to you. The first thing would be like, okay, I think my sales cycle's here. I think this is how long it takes. You can help guide them through the different touch points that you can provide them, and even give them some advice on some other touch points that they can do themselves, so that it culminates into that best opportunity to turn them from a prospective client to an actual client.
Yeah. And I think the only thing I would add there too is, even in our conversation, so our business compared to yours, you would typically have a longer sales cycle than we would, because the internal cost of changing a provider that has as intimate knowledge of a business as you would have is significant, and so when you're, depending on the business you're in, it's important to understand if you've got a background in digital marketing, but that lifetime customer value and the margin that you're making on those customers. Because a lot of times when people think of ROI, they're looking at, okay, I spend, let's say for this conversation, I spend $1,000, I get 10 leads, and it turns into one $1,000 client. And you think, oh, well, I hit break even. Well, if you're looking at that from an annual perspective, you're correct. But that's also meaning you're not planning to retain that client for future buy.
Yeah.
And so it's really, that's a critical thing to consider, because it will impact the amount of effort that you're going to put into developing that new business, because you might not actually be CAC positive on them for 2 years.
Yeah. So I can give you an exact example using you. Okay. You did a spotlight in the Business Examiner on MBA and our approach, the 4 planning pillars, the vision we had, what we want to do with the firm, and how we want to support business owners through this different model. We're calling it the MBA way. And then I had a reach out from fellas from Cavello Financial. They read it. They're not a client yet, or shall we say there may be a prospective client, but we ended up having this incredible conversation and collaboration. And I'm looking at that going, that one ad, that one placement there brought in that one client who could, like, if you actually measured the ROI over the lifetime of what we're going to do, because we've got all sorts of collaborations. John's actually, I don't know if you know John Cavello. Do you know John Cavello from Cavello?
I know the company name from our.
Okay, so he's going to be on my next podcast. I'm actually interviewing him, but there's an exact example of what you just talked about. That's going to spill out all sorts of benefits in the future and value based on that one. So just using, again, I guess that's a second thought point here, is don't look at your advertising dollars as just a one-time shot and a one-time return. It's got a trickle effect on the lifetime value of the client that you have, and the value that can happen into the future. It's and in multiple different ways. One, they become a client. Two, they took over our financial services. Actually, they take care of our benefits package now too. So they actually became a client because they reached out through you to me. So they actually made an infinite ROI on that because they didn't pay for the advertising. You know what I mean? But we got a great ROI because now we got a better we got a better service package for our benefits plan for our group. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And then I think too, right, because they're in a similar B2B boat as you, there's opportunities for, whether it's lunch and learns that you collab on, or whether it's a referral, a structured annual meeting of, hey, someone's looking for benefits. Hey, someone's looking for an accounting provider, and they become, some people call it center of influence, where they're essentially a referral partner outside of the business relationship there. So
cool.
The B2B side, like the B2B marketing, I found, let's say you're selling, your residential electrician services or something. That's a lot easier to market because people are searching on Google,
right?
Facebook ads and Instagram ads. Those are actually going to work very, very well for service-based business. B2B, it's much more complex. It just, I wish that there was an A plus B equals C, but the reality is, at least in my experience, is the B2B side is a much more technical and more intentional and relationship-based business development approach. Yes, marketing does matter in your logo and those things, but the strategic or the tactics that you take.
Cool. So then what do you see as a future? Like, what do you see the future then of marketing? Like, if we've got some trends we're looking at, we know where the problem or the obstacles are, right? For our B2B clients, our clients that are going B2B. What do you see as a future trend? Like, obviously you saw paper not being the future trend because you shifted out of paper to digital, right? But what other predictions do you have for the future of this business, of business marketing? And what can our listeners think about in terms of when they're going out for when they're investing their advertising dollars and their sales cycle?
Yeah. So I think, I think if you look at it from like an investment perspective, you talk to an investment broker who's going to treat you fairly. They're going to keep probably 90%, maybe let's say 80 to 90% of your investment dollars in fairly safe investments, depending on your risk profile, right? And so if you're in Kelowna, let's just say, and you're in a home-based business or home service-based business, you probably want to be on Castanet as an example, or wherever you live, whatever your version of that is. But you need to, there's just some static platforms that you are going to need to be a part of. You should probably be a member of your Chamber of Commerce, things like that. And then when you start to, on the investment side, there's usually a 10, maybe 20% speculative investment or speculative allocation of your investment dollars. And so if you're thinking of money, maybe it's a Bitcoin or a crypto or some kind of, higher risk sector. Blockchain stuff was big a while ago, or maybe it's an emerging economy or Forex or, whatever your thing is. So I think if you look at your marketing investment as sort of that, the 80-20 rule, there's going to be 80% of your dollars should go in places that you currently consume. Okay, I'm a business owner. I read this. I'm guessing there's other business owners there. Let's put something out there. And then there is some experimentation, maybe it's a billboard as an example. Coming down from Kelowna, onto that big bridge. I mean, there's just 40 billboards and lots of eyeballs on those things. Maybe you want to, Instagram doesn't seem like a great spend for us, but you know what? We've never tried it. So let's invest a little bit there. So there is, but the greatest thing that I think that helps companies is having dedicated business development people. I would say that is, if you had to choose between marketing and a salesperson, I would spend more money on the salesperson because they're able to open those doors to develop those relationships. And I just think, because that's what we've seen in our business. Right. We market our own platforms. Right. We partner more with like regional organizations. So on the island, there's some bigger conferences that we're a part of. We want to be there. But there is no substitution for, hey, Eric, how are you doing? How was your week? What's right? And then trying to reinforce it with some kind of branding on a tertiary platform. So I think I've kind of got my 3 points here that I got from you. So, but I'll recap them in a second.
But I want to talk about those live events too. Like, what are the events, some of the events that you do? And you said that you focus on, event producer. These are events that the Business Examiner puts on, right? That's your main focus is on. And what are some of those events that people have probably heard about or seen, and who would be most suited for those? I want to kind of highlight that here. I want to make sure I get that in before we end up the podcast.
Yeah. So I would say, so our business is half in the news production, half in events. And so we run 6 annual events. There's 2 series, we would call them. So one is called the Business Excellence Awards. So these would be regional Business Excellence Award events that are outside of the Chambers of Commerce. And so the goal for us is to put as many, we would call them upper mid-market businesses. So sort of in that like $10 to $15 million, $5 to $15 million gross revenue ranges into those events, because we don't, even for us, like to go out and network at a lot of different local organizations. You're not going to get major purchasing decision makers there. They're just not. You're going to get, wealth advisors. You're going to get personal insurance people, and that's all well and great. Everyone needs to earn a living. But our specialty is in filling a room with people of organizations of a certain size. And that is essentially what the sponsors are paying to have access to.
Yeah, which we did, and I loved being. That was fantastic. And again, I live in Victoria, so I'm not in Kelowna very often. I came up and we were at that event. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and great. You can see, like, even so to your point there, right? The range of the size of businesses. There was some massive, there was anything from publicly traded there, all the way to kind of these hidden civil contractors just building roads, supporting mines. And those are, people like yourself, like those are very, very valuable clients. And it's difficult to get in front of them. And so because there's a celebratory aspect to it, guards are dropped a little bit. It opens up opportunities for some more free flowing conversations. Anyways, I would say that's the value for the sponsors, for the businesses participating. Our sell on that is we have a third party judging panel. And so they're all volunteer judges outside, unaffiliated with our company. So there is legitimacy in terms of you're being scored, properly. The information you're asked to provide is not super, super extensive, but it's certainly personal, and you wouldn't want it out for everybody to see. Because we want to know, like, did you grow? Why did you grow? How much did you grow by? How many staff did you start the year with? How much did you end with? And so it's not a popularity contest. There's no social media voting. You can't buy your way into winning the events. So you should come away from it knowing that you were scored by another business person who understands how companies run, the significance of your growth, or even just staying flat during a time like COVID. And then we market the businesses after the fact. So all the winners get, stored, things like that. So that's one series. We do that on the island. I think we did our 24th in January, 24th annual, aside from COVID. The one coming up June 6th in Kelowna will be the 10th version of that event. And then the other series is called the Commercial Building Awards. So we've got 4 of those. One in Kelowna, one in Surrey that we launched last year, one in Victoria, one in Nanaimo that's coming up next Thursday. And those are project-based awards for multifamily, industrial, commercial developments in those regions. So let's summarize that. So you got the Business Examiner comes out digitally. This used to be the paper version that was sitting in the waiting room, but we have the digital version that comes out, and that's what we did. We did the advertising with you there, and you have your events, and you got you're split 50-50 between events and the digital newspaper, shall we say, like the Business Examiner that it used to be, right? Like the paper copy. Again, I'm so old school in my head. I still can see it sitting there on the coffee table, and I loved it. But here's the thing, and I kind of went a little bit out of order. My apologies here, because I was just trying to soak up those 3 things, because I try and distill down to 3 points. So for the listeners here, I think for the 3 points with what you've talked about,
for business is number one, the big thing was the sales cycle. What is your sales cycle and how many touch points do you need and what kind of touch points do you need to be visible and credible before you become profitable, right? Yeah. That's one. And second one was looking at your return on investment on your ads, but your marketing spend over the lifetime value of the client. And what other value do you get from it? Don't just look at it as I spend $1 today and I get $1 in revenue today. No, it's what is the other spill off? And the ROI is probably a heck of a lot higher than most of us realize, right? Mm-hmm. And then the third one would be and I've never heard someone say this before, but allocate your marketing budget like you would an investment portfolio. Mm-hmm. That's really cool. That's really, really cool. I like that. Now, tell me about the gap here, the 7 years. Tell me what, because I'm like smelling something fun in there because it sounded like it was a lot of fun. Now, this is slightly a family program, so don't get too side crazy, but give me something. give me something to work with here, man.
Yeah. So the Cole's note. So I straight out of high school went to Vancouver Island University for 2 years, and honestly, I had a great time there, but just didn't have the maturity to finish, and so I just dropped out, moved to Whistler, had lots of fun there. I'm from Nanaimo, Vancouver Island originally, and then just during that time did a bunch of different things. Like growing up in the family business. I went to school to escape the family business.
Got it.
Be able to do anything but just because it's what you know. And so I worked for an ad agency. I worked in politics. I ran a municipal campaign in Abbotsford. Spent a lot of time working with Ed Fast, who's a retiring member of Parliament in Abbotsford. Mike DeYoung, former finance minister of the province, potential Conservative Party candidate.
So that's why you have so much knowledge on the tax side and then what's going on with the taxes, and that's why you answered it very politician-ish, I would say, by the way, as well, because you were very careful not to take too much hard of a stand. I'll call a spade a spade. I'll jump right in there, the deep end. I'll say I'm not happy with the tax. I think it's crap. But anyways, so when you're in Whistler, were you like a ski instructor or anything? What'd you do there?
No, just there to party, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Just rented a house with a bunch of friends and I think just got, the wildness, or I had an aunt say when I went out to sow my wild oats.
Yes. I was going to phrase came through my head. I thought about that. John went out to sow his wild oats. But you know what? Your calling was so strong. It brought you back to the family business again, because you're so good at what you do. It's just natural. Like the way you extract, and I love that in the beginning of this podcast, is how you extract the true essence and the value out of the business, and you bring the story, the real story behind the story out. Like, it's fantastic. You did an incredible job for us. I really appreciated that.
Hey, you're welcome. It was a pleasure to be on, man.
Yeah. So cool. All right. Well, we'll have you on again then, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to come up with some new questions.
Oh, yeah, we can do that. There's always more questions. There's always enough complexity out there for our listeners. So, all right. So those of you that are listening, thanks for listening. And again, John MacDonald, thebusinessexaminer.ca. Go check that out. If you're B2B, go give John a call, as he's given us some great information to think about here. The sales cycle, your return on investment over the lifetime value of the client, allocating your marketing money like an investment portfolio. And if you're younger, make sure you go sow your wild oats before you get back into the family business.
You said that, not me.
I did. Yeah. All right. Thanks, John. See ya.
Bye.
If you're a business owner or CPA who believes the accounting profession has let you down, then please reach out to us at www.mbacpa.ca so we can have a chat to see if we're a fit to work together. We're always looking forward to talking to you. See you next time.